So let me tell you about a failure that I noticed. Well, you were dealing with when on the trip that I took with you to Dakshana. You had an office, I think in Gurgaon.
In Faridabad, in Delhi,
You
right.
had staff, and I know that you weren't happy with that setup. And now you have the Colonel.
Right.
And I just, maybe you can tell me the story for John, the story of how the Colonel keeps wanting to retire, and you've told him that he can have an office wherever he likes.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think in 2009 when you were visiting Dakshina with me, that was I think this was the first quarter of 2009. So things were at a pretty low point in terms of net worth, in terms of where markets were at. It was a great time in terms of making investments, so that was wonderful. But one of the issues I was facing at that time is there was a severe drop-off in my net worth and our ability to fund Dakshina. So I knew that I had to dramatically cut back the scope that Dakshina had. And I actually found that as I was looking at the changes to be made, it became clear to me that as we would, slim down, if you will, it was a great opportunity to improve Dakshina in a pretty dramatic way. So so that's what we did. We had to hunker down, but in the process of hunkering down, we were able to put in the seeds of some great restructuring and some great growth. And of course, at that time, one of my board members referred Colonel Sharma to me as a potential CEO. And it didn't hurt that he was willing to work for 1 rupee a year, which was wonderful. And Colonel Sharma is he's in his 70s and he's still pretty fit and very energetic. But he brings up interest in going off to some mountain resort and retiring every few weeks or few months with me. And I always tell him, you retire, you die. There's no point thinking in those terms. And I told him he can go to any mountain resort he wants, and we'll put an office 5 minutes from his house, and he can show up there for 10 minutes a day if he wants, or half an hour a day, or whatever he wants to do, but to stay engaged. I think he would have a hard time himself pulling away from Dakshina because it draws you in.
But so it seems like you found your Buffett manager there, and it's fascinating that somebody with all the professional qualifications to run a not-for-profit in India would not be the right person, and you found somebody who's working for you for free, and you don't even care. He's working for Dakshana, to be more precise, and you don't care how much time he spends on Dakshana. If it's 5 minutes a week, he's still the guy that you want running it, and that seems
the colonel is he used to handle 40,000 troops, and he's got a great team under him, and he's groomed and trained that team really well, and that's why he keeps telling me he wants to retire, because he says they really don't need me and they're running. So the team under him is absolutely jamming all the time. But I think that I still feel Dakshina needs him for many different. We don't need a lot of time from the colonel, but we do need him to be available from time to time, and I think that I would hope continues endlessly. So regarding non-profits, it was very clear to me that the non-profit world has a myriad of problems, and one of the biggest problems is that the people who typically run non-profits are typically people with great hearts, but they don't have great business heads. And what you really need to have an effective non-profit is really have you can say a benevolent entrepreneur running it. And so if people haven't met payrolls, if people haven't built businesses, they are missing some basic skills that I think are fundamental to running a great non-profit. And almost every non-profit is run by individuals who've never met a payroll. And so one of the things that we did at Dakshina is we specifically had no interest in hiring people who had spent time in the non-profit world, because I think having them unlearn what they thought was gospel would either be impossible or take a long time. It's better for us to start with a clean slate. So we haven't had people who've come from the nonprofit world. We also haven't had people who've come from the education world. And I think what we found is that having people come from completely different industries and disciplines has been a source of great strength for Dakshina, because they don't know a way of doing things.
Yeah.
And so we are able to come up with ways of doing things that probably are quite novel and unusual.
What I see is your and the Colonel's capacity to take tough decisions that would not by any stretch of the imagination appear to be benevolent, because you're aiming at a goal. And you make some very difficult decisions. I mean, you are there helping the privileged high intelligent group get into the IITs, but the decisions that you make for the people at the borders, the people who don't make it in, are heartbreaking for me, actually. And it seems like both you and the Colonel are okay with that, because you have your...
Well, we're not okay with that, but I think that any non-profit has to realize that the problems of the world are immense. The resources at their disposal are very limited, and one has to think in a manner of maximizing the good one can do. One cannot, even if you're the Gates Foundation, you cannot take away all the problems of the world. They're just too vast.
Yeah.
And you know, certainly someone like Dakshina is not even 1,000th of the Gates Foundation in terms of assets or funding and such. So our mandate is simply to try to be good stewards of the resources at our disposal and try to do the most good we can with that. And I think I'm actually really proud of what Dakshina has accomplished on that front, because very few nonprofits think that way.
So when are we getting, I know that the Charles T. Munger Hall is being built, and when are we getting the Warren E. Buffett?
We'll definitely get to that at some point. I'm working with the Indian government. The next one we're going to build is going to be in Hyderabad.
Yeah.
So the Charles T. Munger Hall will be a 360-person capacity coaching center in Bangalore. The one in Hyderabad, I would really like to name the V. Prem Vatsa Hall, because Prem is from Hyderabad and he's been an incredible supporter, and I think just that his name in that city would be wonderful to have. But we've got many more of these coming up, so definitely Warren's name is coming up.
So do you think that you could do as good a job of being, now your business card, the Dakshina business card says Chief Catalyst, and so you haven't called yourself Chairman or CEO, and obviously you're the mind behind it. Do you think you could do as good a job, you could have done as good a job if you had been in India? I mean, there are definitely disadvantages being in Southern California with the beneficiaries being in India, but there may be some incredible advantages. The distance actually helps for you to get your thinking clear, or is
actually I think it would be worse. I think I have lived all my adult life outside India, you know, so I think I've been in the United States for more than 31 years, and I actually think that people may not fully appreciate it, but when I go to India for Dakshina, basically I'm a tourist. I really, I think I've spent less than a half an hour in our headquarters in all these trips. In fact, most of the time when I go to India, I never make it to the city where we are headquartered.
Which is where?
Which is in Pune. Yeah. And because I love to meet the kids either in the schools or meet the parents in the homes and all of that, and the rural India and all that. So you can really say that my Dakshina related trips to India are really not directly operational. I just focus on things that I happen to enjoy. And of course, there is data and learning that comes out of those visits that is helpful to Dakshina. But in my opinion, it's a perfect match. The folks who are running Dakshina in India are extremely good at it. I think they're vastly better at it than I would be. and they have rightfully stressed to me that my job is to make sure that Dakshina never has a financial hiccup. And I'm proud to say that it's actually in the very best financial state it's ever been in. And so I think we've got a good engine because it's a great match. I think the DNA of Dakshina, part American, part Indian, is a terrific DNA. So I think that's the distance and such, I think, has allowed me to, like you said, look at things in a more strategic way, and I think I've added plenty of value on the strategy and direction. I've added very little value on the nuts and bolts of running it on the ground in India.
So that American-Indian combo, of course, my heart is slightly pained because I feel like it should be a British-India thing, but I guess the
Britain's in there too, Guy, because my education and your education, even though yours took place in England and mine took place in India, has lots of similarities.
Yes.
So it's deeply embedded in there as well.
But so I brought up to you the book, The Billionaire's Apprentice, and one of the things that I said to Monhish, John, was that I was glad it wasn't just the Jews, the Bernie Madoffs of the world, who were doing what they were doing. But just in the context of that, Lee Kuan Yew, in his book One Man's View of the World, talks about America being an amazing place to live. But he talks about how if he was sending his children, if he wanted to live somewhere, he'd actually go to the UK. And I guess the Indian experience in the United States has been an amazing experience. And of course, it's a broad experience. There have been amazing successes, and there have been also some people who've engaged in criminal behavior. But maybe you can just give your take on having immigrated to the United States from India with your background, and what it's done for India, what it's done.
Well,
for you.
I think that I think the United States is I would say that people say America is an idea, and I think it's an incredible idea, and it is. I'm so glad this idea exists. And I think it has a physical presence. I love America for so many reasons, because many of the things that are possible for Americans and immigrants and anyone in the United States is not possible anywhere else in the world. I'll give you an example. So I finished high school in Dubai, right? And I still have friends who live there. And one of the things that impacts your opportunity set is how big is the country and how big is the market.
Yeah.
And you can be as smart as you want in Dubai, but you basically have limitations because of boundaries and geographies and all of that. The United States has just amazing advantages in terms of size and going across two oceans, etc. So
how you can scale up.
Not only that, but then on top of that you overlay incredible natural resources. Then you overlay on top of that an incredible approach to developing human resources and an incredible openness for anyone to come in and be able to do their thing. You look at a company like Google. It doesn't happen if you don't have migration from Russia. And such. So we have all these amazing advantages in the United States. I just think that there is no other country on the planet that can come close. In fact, I feel now that the United States is the real emerging market. I think people start looking at all these different nooks and crannies around the world for emerging markets and where the growth's going to come from and such. But I think America has so many intrinsic strengths, and those strengths are getting more and more prominent. So, for example, the whole shale gas revolution is a huge tailwind for the United States. Having all the leading universities, huge tailwind. Still a huge importer of incredible talent, huge tailwind. And if they get immigration fixed, those tailwinds get even stronger. And no other country has those advantages.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You did miss out a few universities outside of the UK, a couple in the outside of the United States.
Absolutely, there's good schools. IITs in India are great, but I'm just saying that the collection that you have in the United States is just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to one of my Pakistani friends, and he was saying, Monish, you can go to just a place like Orange County, and the number of pilots you would have in one county in the United States would probably exceed all the pilots in Pakistan.
Wow.
You know, so I'm just saying that the strength of this country on different fronts is incredible.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But I would argue that for those of us who live outside of the United States, what's incredible is that you could participate. I participate in the life of the United States, and I don't even live here. I invest, I would argue, on equal terms to any American investor in terms of information and insight, and but
well, you are enriching the United States. That's the beauty of it.
By diverting capital from the global capital markets into the United States,
absolutely,
ensuring a lower cost of funds for American businesses, I think that people all over the world are doing that. It's we talk about the US losing its reserve currency status, and the institutions that make it such a great place to invest mean that I don't think it will happen in our lifetimes, actually.
Yes, I mean, that's kind of hard to predict, but I think it's a bad bet to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Although many people that we know, so going back to investing for a second, why is it that some of the people that we observe who are so smart, smarter than I am, and possibly even smarter than Monhish Pabrai is, do things like bet against, let's say, a fixed exchange rate in Asia, and things or continue to short stocks? Why do they?
Well, I think in many cases, like Warren says, that if you were to give up 50 IQ points, you would actually do better.
Yeah.
So I think egos get in the way. I think too much intellectual horsepower gets in the way. I think Buffett's approach, which is don't invest in anything till it hits you like a 2x4 on your head,
yeah,
and it's blindingly obvious.
Oh, sorry.
Do not invest in something which requires a 14-page thesis to explain why things are going to go your way. Invest in something that requires 4 sentences.
What is a 2x4?
It's a piece of wood used in American construction.
Okay, I was thinking 4x4 truck, something.
2x4.
I would just say, and this may be an interesting place to close up, so I had our videographers, John, outside Monhish, because John's already heard this. And the way I introduced your office was that I said, and I only realized it now, Monhish, I was thinking if I was to move here and I saw some office parks and I saw XYZ Financial Factoring Company, in Kiewit Plaza, they're all constructing things, and there's Berkshire Hathaway sitting in the middle of that allocating capital. And here in this park, you have a yoga studio and you have some college preparation companies all teaching kids how to prepare for the SAT, and then you have Monhish allocating capital in the middle of something that is completely non-financial. And I'm convinced that makes a big difference. I would argue that if you had your office somewhere in an office tower in New York with a bunch of hedge funds around, you'd be thinking up all sorts of crazy things to do, and you would have done many of them, actually. So
right. Well, let me put it this way, Guy. I'm not looking to move. I'm happy being where I am, and I think it's a great place to be, and very much enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's great.
Fun. And thank you, John, for making this happen.
Thank you, John.